Throughout my time as a skateboarder, I've seen people use skateboards in a wide variety of ways. Some of these things include using a skateboard for self-defense, or for working out, or even using it as a meal tray. Now, I guess technically there is no right or wrong way to use a skateboard, but there are some things that might be better to avoid. In this video, we're going to go over things that you should never do with a skateboard. Keep in mind, these are in no particular order, and I'm sure there's plenty of good ones that I left off, so if you feel like I missed anything, go ahead and leave it in the comments. As always, do me a favor and leave a like on the video, and now, let's get right into it. Actually, before going too far, I want to thank Omaze for sponsoring today's video. Omaze gives away one-of-a-kind prizes and experiences while donating money to charities all across the world. Currently, Omaze has a campaign giving away a $4.3 million Los Angeles dream home to help out an organization called Rebuilding Together, which is devoted to repairing the homes of veterans and neighbors with low income. This property is the modern equivalent of striking gold, and because it's in Los Angeles, the epicenter of entertainment, you'll land in entertainer's haven with an open concept kitchen and living room that leads to an equally enticing backyard. The 5-bedroom, 6-bath house is spread across 5,800 square feet with an in-home movie theater, basketball court, and putting green. The house also has a main bedroom suite with a fireplace, walk-in closet, and an oversized shower, which is arguably the best part. Live that LA lifestyle with hiking, golfing, and vibrant nightlife just minutes away, or if you'd like, you can choose a multi-million-dollar cash prize instead. Enter for your chance to win this dream house while supporting a great cause at omaze.com/skatebox. And with that said, let's get into the video. So first on the list, we have throwing a skateboard. I'm not sure if it's because us skateboarders have tiny monkey brains or if it's because we're basically emotionally unstable kids, but for some reason, skateboarders love throwing their boards. I've seen people throw their boards when they're angry, and I've also seen people throw their boards when they're happy, and I've even seen people throw their boards just for fun. Now, it's probably best to avoid throwing your board for any reason, but the only time it can actually be somewhat problematic is if you're throwing it because you're mad. If you're just tossing it around because you're stoked, then you might get a chip in your board, but no one is really going to think twice about it. On the other hand, if you're throwing it because you're mad that you can't land a trick, then you can end up killing the vibe of everyone else skating, which isn't really ideal. I mean, honestly, throwing things around in general is never the best coping mechanism when you're angry, regardless of the situation, but it's especially bad for skating since you're normally in a group setting, and most skateboarders feed off the energy of everyone else skating. For example, if one skater is getting hyped up, then the other skaters are more likely to be hyped up as well. This is why you see so many people land a trick right after their friend does. Since skateboarders tend to feed off of each other, if you start freaking out and throwing your board around, you can kind of dampen the mood, so even if you are mad, you should at least try to hold it together. Even though not landing a trick can make just about anyone go crazy, no one likes skating with a guy who's always having a meltdown, so the next time you feel like tossing your board, maybe just take a few seconds to have a breather and collect yourself, at least for the sake of your friends. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you can never ever get mad. I'm just saying that it's probably not a terrible idea to avoid having a public freak out. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, so if you have any good stories, then go ahead and leave them in the comments because it's something that every skater deals with eventually. Next on the list is posing with a skateboard. If you ever find yourself posing for a photo either with or on a skateboard, then you probably went wrong somewhere down the line. Now, I'm not going to say there's no reason why you should find yourself posing for a photo with a skateboard, but I will say that there's very few reasons that are justified. It seems like every other day, a new clip or photo comes out of some random person doing a mall grab pose with their board, and it's never really a good look. Not only that, but a lot of the time, they're not even wearing skate clothes, or they're posing in a way that just doesn't really make sense. I mean, just imagine if someone showed up to a tennis court wearing jeans and cleats solely for the purpose of a photo shoot. I've never played tennis, but I'm assuming that the other players there would most likely give them some weird looks. The main problem here is that posing with a skateboard makes it seem like you're only concerned with convincing people that you skate, or that you're only doing it for the aesthetic. Since a lot of people work hard to earn their stripes within skateboarding, seeing someone pose with a skateboard, especially if they aren't a skateboarder themselves, is usually looked down on. Just to be clear, I'm not talking about actual skaters being in a photo while holding their board, or someone getting a photo of an actual skate trick. The main thing that I'm referring to is people who either don't skate or barely skate and are trying to pose for a photo as if they do. I know there's no law saying that you aren't allowed to pose with a skateboard, so if you want to do it, then by all means go for it. But I will say that actual skateboarders can easily tell whether or not you really skate. The way I see it, if you like skateboarding culture enough to pose with a skateboard, then you might as well commit to actually learning how to do it. Next on the list, we have skating in the rain, or just getting your board wet in general. Skating in the rain is something that pretty much every skateboarder does at some point, but it's usually not the best idea. It might be fun at first, especially if you've never done it, but as a lot of you probably could have guessed, skating in the rain essentially ruins most of your board. Your deck is pretty much guaranteed to get waterlogged, your bearings are going to rust, your hardware is going to rust, and the only thing you'll be left with is a set of trucks and wheels. Of course, it does take rust a while to show up, so it's not like it's going to happen right away, but it will happen eventually. I've seen this plenty of times where some kid skates through a puddle or tries to cruise around a little bit in the rain, and they end up ruining their board without even realizing it. I know there are certain situations where the spot just has water at it, and it is hard to avoid. For those situations, I recommend swapping out an old deck and maybe even finding some old bearings. That way, it's almost as if you have a backup board and you don't ruin your actual setup. It can be fun to skate in the rain or even just skate a spot with water, but I think a lot of kids can be short-sighted and they ruin the one board that they have, so the point is to just be selective about skating through water. If you have an old board that you don't mind messing up, or if you have the money to spend on a new one, then I guess it's not that big of a deal, but just know that it doesn't take that much water to completely ruin a board. Up next is riding on your stomach. Most seasoned skateboarders know better than to ride on their stomach, but for kids who are new to skating, it's something that happens a lot. Now, there's a ton of reasons not to ride a skateboard on your stomach, but the primary reason is that it's pretty dangerous, especially for people who don't know what they're doing. This is something that you see a lot with younger kids who are just starting out and might not be super comfortable standing on a board. A lot of them prefer to ride on their stomach because they're lower to the ground, and since they're not that high up, it's pretty much impossible to fall. Plus, it's a lot easier to do and they just feel safer. The thing is, they get a false sense of security and you can actually get pretty broke off just riding on your stomach. It might not be as scary, but riding on your stomach makes it a lot harder to actually control the board. It makes it harder for you to stop, and it forces you to have your face just a few inches off the ground, which isn't really the best place for it to be. All it takes is for you to ride down a ramp that's a little too steep, or to hit a stop rock, or to even just lean too far forward, and before you know it, your face is on the ground. Realistically, this also kind of applies to sitting on a board. Even though you have a little more control and you're less likely to hit your face, it's still not the best idea. If you're actually doing a trick like a coffin, that's a different story, but when it comes to kids riding down ramps while sitting down, it's usually a lot more dangerous than having them stand up. I'm not trying to sound like a grumpy old man because I know kids are just trying to have fun, but honestly, they're much better off skating normally. So up next, we have skating through dirt. Skating in dirt or grass can definitely have a cool novelty to it, but you should try to pick your battles wisely. This kind of goes without saying, but riding on anything other than concrete can ruin your wheels and bearings fairly quickly, so if you're going to mess up your board, you should at least make sure it's worth it. There's definitely certain spots that are worth ruining your setup, but I think a lot of times kids just skate through dirt and sand without really thinking about it. If you really want to skate a dirt spot, or if you just like riding through some grass, then I recommend getting a dedicated board specifically for that. A lot of skaters don't know this, but there's actually companies out there that make dirt boards, which, as the name suggests, are boards that are specifically meant for riding off-road. I haven't personally used one of these before, but I will leave a link to some in the description in case anyone wants to check them out. The main difference with these boards is that they have better wheels, so the ride is smoother, and they also have riser pads, so you're less likely to get wheel bite. Those two small improvements alone can make a massive difference, since controlling a board is a lot harder when you're off-road, and slamming is never fun, even if you're on dirt. Again, just like with the water thing, it's your board, so do whatever you want with it, but if you can't afford new gear, then you might want to take care of the stuff that you have. I'm not trying to tell anyone what they can or can't do with their skateboard. I'm really just trying to give some suggestions of things that you should probably try to avoid. Keep in mind though, there's no rules in skateboarding, so do what you want as long as it doesn't interfere with anyone else. If I left anything out, go ahead and leave it in the comments. As always, do me a favor and leave a like on the video. Check out the links in the description. And with that said, thanks for watching.